What if the secret to finally letting go of your clutter is pretending you're about to walk away from it all? Sounds dramatic, but here's the surprising truth. When seniors downsize for a real move, they often part with over 40% of their belongings. Not because they've suddenly become minimalists, but because a move forces clarity. It separates the meaningful from the forgotten, the useful from the just in case. Now imagine tapping into that same clarity without ever changing your address. Here's a wild thought. What if moving out faking it, at least, is the fastest way to figure out what you truly don't need? The dusty knickknacks, the duplicate baking trays, the someday craft projects. Suddenly, they lose their grip when you ask yourself, would I pack this if I had to start over tomorrow? That's exactly what this video is about. If you're over 60 and feeling the weight of a home filled with decades of things, some cherished, some just ... There, this simple mindset shift might be your light bulb moment. We're diving into 4 move-out method tricks that can turn indecision into action and help you create breathing room without the chaos of a real move. Welcome to Wise Aging Seniors, where we share smarter, not harder ways to age with clarity, health, and freedom. If that sounds like your kind of journey, hit that subscribe button now and join a growing community of people choosing simplicity, not sentimentality, as their superpower. Elvira is 67. She lives in a weather-worn colonial farmhouse tucked into the pines of mid-coast Maine. Retired librarian. Widowed 5 years ago. A woman with a sharp mind, a soft heart, and an attic full of memories she hasn't touched in decades. She always said, "I'll get to it one day." But one day never came until a small stumble shifted everything. One rainy afternoon, on her way to the laundry room, she tripped over a dusty plastic tub labeled in fading marker, "Winter scarves -1992. She didn't even remember owning half of them. And yet, she found herself sitting on the floor, rubbing the yarn between her fingers like she was flipping through chapters of an old diary. Some of the scarves were handmade. Others, gifts. One still had a price tag. But none had been worn since Clinton was in office. That's when it hit her, not physically, but emotionally. Why was she keeping all of this? For who, and why now? Downsizing had always felt like something other people did. People who were moving to Florida. People who had a plan. Elvira had neither. But what she did have was a question. What would I take with me if I had to move? Tomorrow? She didn't actually plan to leave her home. But she did something quietly bold. She stood in her hallway. Imagine she had just 48 hours to pack up and move into a tiny woodland cabin, and asked herself, what's essential to the life I want now, not the one I had? That mental shift cracked something open. She wasn't sorting objects anymore, she was reevaluating her story. She went room by room, item by item, not with a checklist, but with a sense of curiosity. Would this come with me into a smaller, simpler, more intentional life? If not, maybe, just maybe, it didn't need to stay at all. Have you ever kept something just because it reminded you of who you used to be? Maybe an old college sweatshirt, a wedding invitation, or a kitchen gadget from a phase you never fully committed to. Share it in the comments, we'd love to know. Because for Elvira, that dusty tub of scarves wasn't just clutter, it was a time capsule she hadn't realized she was living inside. And pretending to move out, it became her way of finally moving forward. Trick number 1. The One-Carload test. Elvira's first real breakthrough came with a surprisingly simple challenge, the One-Carload test. She didn't hire a professional organizer. She didn't buy labeled bins or color-coded charts. She just walked outside, opened the trunk of her aging Subaru Outback, and stood there in silence. Then she whispered to herself, if I had to pack my whole life into this car and drive away tomorrow, what would I take? Not what should I take? Not what might be useful someday. But what would I actually, truly take with me to start over somewhere new? That question reshaped everything. She gave herself a pretend scenario. A move across the country to a small rented cottage in New Mexico, somewhere warmer, simpler, freer. She wasn't actually going anywhere, but she used that fictional move as a lens. Only the most essential, valuable, or deeply meaningful items would earn a spot in the car. So she started packing, not with tape and boxes, but with intention. A handmade quilt her mother stitched in the 70s. Yes, for nearly identical casserole dishes she hadn't touched since 2004. No. A photo album from her daughter's high school years. Absolutely. A broken lamp with a missing shade she might fix someday. Not anymore. The trunk filled slowly, not just with objects, but with clarity. She realized how much of her home had become a museum of what once was. Items she didn't even see anymore, but still carried the emotional weight of her past. By imagining a new chapter somewhere else, Elvira began to reclaim space in the life she was still living now. Try this yourself. Walk outside. Open your trunk or back seat. Stare into that small space and ask, if everything else disappeared, would this be enough to feel like home? It's not about minimalism. It's about identifying what truly matters at this stage in life. This exercise helped Elvira realize something huge. She hadn't been curating a home, she'd been curating her history. And the older we get, the more tempting it becomes to turn our homes into time capsules instead of launch pads. What's one item you know you'd take, without question, if you had to leave tomorrow? Comment below, we'd love to see what truly matters to you. And get ready, because the next trick, it's the one that helped Elvira let go of something she never thought she'd part with. Her late husband's collection of 30 neckties. Not by forgetting him, but by honoring him in a whole new way. Trick number 2. Legacy labeling. Would you want this left behind? Elvira's second strategy was far more emotional than spatial. She called it legacy labeling, and it started with a single sticky note. One afternoon, while sorting through an old cedar chest filled with her late husband's belongings, she paused on a stack of neckties. 30 of them, some silk, some hideous, some never even worn. She sat cross-legged on the floor, ties spread out like playing cards, and felt a strange mix of fondness and dread. She didn't wear them, didn't touch them, but couldn't throw them away. Why? That's when she wrote a little note just to herself and stuck it on the box. Would I want someone else to deal with this if I were gone tomorrow? The question hit her like a wave. She realized she wasn't keeping the ties because she loved them. She was keeping them because she felt obligated, like throwing them out would be disrespectful, disloyal. But all that guilt, it was just quietly building clutter and burden. Elvira began walking around her house with a roll of masking tape and a marker. She started labeling items, not to organize, but to confront. A cracked candy dish from a long-past relative. Would my daughter want to sort this while grieving me? An antique sewing machine she hadn't used since 1999. Would someone else feel guilty tossing this, even if it meant nothing to them? Suddenly, she wasn't just decluttering, she was future-proofing her legacy. Legacy labeling isn't about imagining death. It's about taking ownership now, so others won't have to make painful decisions later. It's an act of love, not loss. And for Elvira, it flipped the script. She no longer saw those items as sacred. She saw them as emotional assignments she'd accidentally passed on to others. And slowly, gently, she started letting go. She kept just 3 of her husband's ties, the ones with the strongest memories, and donated the rest to a local theater group. They'd live again, in costumes, on stage. That, she realized, was far more honoring than letting them rot in a dusty bin. Try this yourself. Walk around your space. Tape a single note to one item, just one, and ask yourself, would I want my child, my niece, my best friend to be the one deciding what to do with this if I were gone? That one question can unlock more clarity than 100 organizing books. Have you ever kept something just because it was gifted to you, even though you didn't like it or use it? Let us know in the comments. You're not alone. And stay tuned because in the next trick, Elvira discovers how pretending to say goodbye to her favorite room revealed exactly what she really valued, and what she was finally ready to release. Trick number 3. Real estate reality game. Stage your home for sale. One rainy Saturday morning, Elvira tried something new, a mental trick she dubbed the real estate reality game. It started after she watched a real estate show on TV where the host walked through homes, pointing out everything that made a space feel too crowded, too dated, too personal. She sat up on the couch and muttered, "What would they say about my place?" So she decided to play pretend. She told herself, "A realtor is coming in 1 hour. They're bringing potential buyers. I need this house to look clean, open, and welcoming, not like a time capsule of my entire life." And just like that, something shifted in her mind. She walked into each room not as its owner, but as a stranger. She squinted at the knickknacks lining the fireplace mantel, the magazine pile on the end table, the dusty fake fern in the hallway she hadn't watered since 2009 because it wasn't real but still somehow dusty. It all started to feel ... extra. To take it further, she grabbed her phone and started snapping photos of each space. That was the real eye-opener. In the photos, she didn't see the warmth of memories. She saw clutter, the worn edges of things, the visual noise. What stood out most wasn't the couch she loved or the antique bookshelf she once restored with her husband, it was the excess. The baskets of tangled cords, the half-burned candles, the stacks of outdated catalogs sitting quietly in corners. She realized something profound. She wasn't living in her home, she was preserving it. By pretending to sell her home, Elvira finally saw it with fresh eyes. Not eyes clouded by nostalgia, but with clarity about what made the space feel alive, and what made it feel stuck. She started clearing surfaces, boxing up what didn't serve a clear purpose, and letting go of the dozens of just-in-case items that hadn't been touched in years. Suddenly, her home began to breathe again. This wasn't about erasing history, it was about curating a space for today. A space where she could host her book club without clearing off 3 chairs. A space that didn't drain her just by looking at it. Try this yourself. Walk through your home and pretend a realtor is showing up in an hour. Take photos. Be brutally honest. What would a stranger notice first? What feels intentional, and what feels forgotten? Have you ever looked at a photo of your home and thought, "Wow, I didn't realize it looked like that"? Let us know in the comments. It's a strange but powerful moment. And stick around because the final trick, it's the one that even Elvira's daughter said, "You do that? No way." But she did. And it changed everything. Trick number 4. The 3-day trial separation box. If you don't miss it, it's gone. Elvira had tried lists. She had tried sorting. She had tried holding each item and asking if it sparked joy. But nothing truly cracked through the emotional fog until she tried something bold and a little sneaky. She called it her 3-day trial separation box. Here's how it worked. She chose a room, her guest bedroom, the one that had slowly turned into a storage cave, and filled 3 large cardboard boxes with whatever she thought might be clutter. No overthinking, no organizing, just items she hadn't used in a long time, or that made her pause instead of smile. Then came the twist. She sealed the boxes shut. No labels, no categories, just tape. She slid them into the hallway closet, shut the door, and gave herself one rule: don't peek for 3 days. Day 1, she felt curious. Day 2, she started to forget. By day 3, she couldn't name a single item she'd packed. Not one. And with that, she made the decision, if I didn't even miss it, why should I keep it? She drove all 3 boxes to the local donation center. The moment she shut the trunk, something shifted inside her. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't loss. It was relief. She felt lighter. Not just emotionally but physically. The air in her home felt easier to breathe. That's the hidden gift of the trial separation box. It allows your mind to detach from your stuff without the fear of immediate loss. You get to prove to yourself that you're not attached, you're just used to having things around. And here's the truth Elvira discovered. Most of the things we think we might need someday are things we haven't needed in the past 10 years. This trick didn't just help her declutter a room, it taught her to trust her instincts. That her peace of mind was more valuable than a serving tray she hadn't used since the Bush administration. You can try this today. Grab a box or 3. Fill them with the maybes, don't label them, don't organize. Just seal and set a reminder on your phone for 3 days. When the time's up, ask yourself, what was in there? If you can't recall, that box might be ready to move on without you. Would you be brave enough to seal 3 mystery boxes and walk away from them? Drop a comment below. I would or no way. We're curious who's ready to take the leap. And remember, decluttering isn't about saying goodbye to your past. It's about making room for your next chapter. Elvira didn't just clear out space, she claimed it. For joy, for freedom, for now. Elvira never actually moved to that tiny cabin in New Mexico she imagined. Her weathered colonial farmhouse still stands solid against the Maine pines. But something inside her and her home has changed profoundly. Where there once was a maze of boxes, scarves, and unopened drawers, now there is air. Wide, open rooms that breathe. The once cluttered living room invites sunlight to pour in unhindered through windows cleaned of years of dust and distraction. Her favorite reading chair, once surrounded by piles of maybe someday items, now sits proudly with a side table free of clutter, holding only a fresh cup of tea and a well-worn book. Gone are the days of accidentally tripping over forgotten scarves from 1992 or shuffling around piles of old magazines that serve no purpose but to remind her of time slipping away. Her home has become a sanctuary where she feels truly in control. More than that, Elvira has reclaimed her emotional space. Decluttering wasn't just about the stuff, it was about proving something to herself. It was about taking back the reins. In those quiet moments after the last box was donated, she realized this wasn't about nostalgia or guilt. It was about agency. She controlled what stayed, what left, and most importantly, how she chose to live going forward. This transformation rippled beyond the physical. Elvira found herself waking with more energy, smiling at the sunlight, and savoring the simplicity of her surroundings. She hosted a small book club again, no more shifting piles to make room on the table. She started tending a small herb garden on the porch, an idea she had shelved for years under layers of too much stuff. Her home became a reflection of the new chapter she was writing, not defined by the past, but by freedom, clarity, and choice. And this is where the real magic lies for all of us, especially after 60. Decluttering isn't about losing memories. It's about honoring them in a way that frees you body, mind, and spirit. Elvira's journey reminds us that sometimes, pretending to move out is the key to moving forward. Have you ever experienced a moment when letting go of something old made room for something better? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear how you created your own new space, new peace. You don't have to pack a single box or change your address to feel a fresh start. Sometimes, the biggest shift happens in your mind the moment you decide to release what no longer serves you. Pretending to move isn't about leaving your home. It's about leaving behind the emotional clutter that weighs you down. If you want true freedom in your next chapter, begin by letting go of the last one. It's not easy, but it's possible, and it can change everything. If Elvira's story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who's been thinking about decluttering for years but hasn't yet taken the first step. And if you're ready for more uncommon, Practical advice to help you age with grace and purpose. Subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors. Your best days are still ahead. Let's make them count together.